The latest polling by The Economist and YouGov shows Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard surging in the Democratic primary, followed by Senator Bernie Sanders.
In a certain demographic, anyway. We'll explain. Right. We're back with Democratic strategist Andrew Feldman and media analyst Marshall Kosloff. Okay, so new YouGov Economist poll. I like these polls because they have the most amazing crosstabs. They go into like income data and race and who they voted for previously. So I found this this data via this tweet, actually. Right. This is the Trump voters who are crossing over to support Democratic voters. And in that category, Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders, and Andrew Yang have the most support among Trump voters. Now, look.
N42.
Caveat, very small sample size, right? Very small sample size, caveat. However, this is consistent with other polling that I've seen from Economist YouGov and other places. I just think it's so interesting, Marshall, because the pat standard conventional wisdom is the further left you are, the less electable you are. And what you see here instead is that actually the best lane to be in terms of winning crossover voters doesn't have to do with your ideology. It has to do with whether or not you are anti-establishment.
Yeah, exactly. And it just shows that those the candidates who are doing well in that poll, and this is why we should, yes, this is 42 people, but we have to think bigger than that, is that they, once again, we were talking earlier about they have an argument. They have an argument that the establishment in D.C., in New York City, in California, et cetera, has failed. And candidates who would speak to that issue, that's a sort of nonpartisan measure, so that's actually a nonpartisan argument. And so that's actually the funny thing. So you're saying they're going to the left, but I'm like, actually, they're moving to the left, but they're actually sort of making a actually centrist argument.
Their solution is left, but their argument is the core.
Their diagnosis. They're diagnosing a problem.
Is what it's all about, and it's the fact that so many people can't even diagnose that problem, Andrew. What did you think of this?
I think Crystal likes these polls because Tulsi Gabbard's on top. I also have to just say that I'm very skeptical of YouGov polls.
Okay.
Because the reason I say that is their polling is always only online, and that only gives you a sect of the electorate that is engaging online. We know from the viewers of this show that a lot of Tulsi Gabbard support, a lot of Andrew Yang support is within the online community.
Sure.
So that's not surprising to see that. At the same time, yes, Republicans want to support Tulsi Gabbard because she's going to be more favorable to Russia.
No,
no.
All right,
you're going to pull that on this show? Come on, man.
And look, and I just want to be clear, these aren't the top line numbers.
Yeah. No, correct. This is on that issue of Trump.
Crossover voters.
Which doesn't surprise. It does not surprise me.
It's not about Russia. It's about the fact she's talking about ending endless wars. That's exactly what Trump ran on. That's what America First is.
It's not surprising that would have crossover appeal. The message of we've been fighting wars for 20. Wait, do you actually think that isn't a crossover message?
Yeah.
I don't. Poll, but do you not think?
80% of the country is like, let's get out of Afghanistan.
Yes, correct. But the way Tulsi Gabbard wants to do that is putting our troops in harm's way.
How?
When you look at her Syria plan, right? She's going to meet with Assad. When you're looking at meeting with dictators, that's just as bad as Trump meeting with the Turkish president yesterday.
Let me ask you this: Did you support the Iraq War or not?
No.
No.
Yeah.
So me neither. And if you don't support the Iraq War, what that means is that you believe Saddam Hussein, a brutal dictator who gassed his own people, should have remained in charge of that country. That is my position. That's Tulsi's position.
That doesn't mean that I would go.
And that's also her position in Syria. And her view is, and look, you don't have to agree with the view, but the view is you've got three choices. You can go to war, you can ignore, or you can engage diplomatically. She believes in engaging diplomatically, even with people who are awful, murdering, brutal dictators. So look, you cannot think that that's the right approach. I think it's complicated, but you can't pretend that this isn't a principled view that she has consistently held in spite of the fact that she has been smeared by everyone at every turn.
I'm not saying it's not her long-standing view. right? I just don't think it keeps us safe.
I need to jump in.
Okay, but that's, yeah, go ahead.
Just to jump in here real quick. Look, I don't think Tulsi should have met with Assad either.
Yeah.
That being said, I think it's dangerous to sort of use talking points like that to respond to the endless war critique. We could debate the tactical, wait, this real quick. We could debate whether it was tactically wise of her to meet with a brutal dictator.
Right.
Sure.
But to then say that anyone who thinks that we shouldn't be as engaged in the Middle East wants to meet with Assad is insane. And frankly, isn't doing your argument any favors.
I'm not saying that either. What I'm saying is there's a lot of other candidates that want to get us out of these wars, right? I'm saying if you want to get out of these wars, support Bernie Sanders, support someone else.
They
other
do.
than,
That's why he's at 15% of the vote, and that's why Yang is at 13. So
Right.
supporting the argument.
once again, this is the same thing that what we're talking about, which is not. It's not the reason she has that support. Isn't that? It's because actually Tulsi is much more culturally to the right than these other candidates, and that's why she would have that. She's explicitly denounced open borders. She's against third trimester abortion. She's spoken out against identity politics.
she's spoken out against LGBTQ.
Okay,
Right?
First of all, she hasn't
not
spoken
fair.
about against it.
That is not fair at all.
Yeah.
You're talking about something from her basically childhood and from her very early days. She's very clearly on the side of
And
LGBTQ.
she has absolutely
I mean, look,
disavowed
you're going to
that.
smear her as some like Russian plant. That's ridiculous.
I'm not saying she's a Russian plant. That's not what I'm saying either.
You said
No,
that
I'm saying that
because she's supportive of Russia. Something ridiculous like that.
I'm not saying she's a Russian plant at all. I'm not saying she's a Russian asset. I'm saying that based on her policies, she may be more favorable to Russia than some of the other candidates.
And that's why Trump supporters
I've been hearing this for 2.5 years about Trump, and it's the same thing, which is that if you support any sort of strategic rebalance away from the Middle East, you're playing right into Putin's hands. I think it's the most ridiculous thing and argument. But we should also, I think, talk more about the Sanders and the Yang crossover here, because that is what I think we talk about here most on the show, Marshall, about the economic crossover and the diagnosis of that problem, which is that, Yang and Sanders in particular are the most not talking about these cultural issues and purely centering on class warfare. And I think that when you look at it from that perspective, it shows you the lane of any successful politics, both for on the right and for the left.
Yeah, and Sagar, you talk about this all the time, right? The Republican Party, especially since 2016, is more and more working class. It's more and more people who don't have college degrees. These are the people who went for Trump over sort of the Jeb Bush vision of the Republican Party. It's not a surprise that people who would speak to left-wing economics would there be sympathy there. There's no surprise that those people aren't that excited about tax cuts for wealthy people.
Right.
It's no surprise those people aren't excited about, right-wing economics.
Right.
This isn't.
Trickle down.
I think at the end of the day, I think all of the reason why this poll matters is just making the argument that there's a lot of crossover between these issues that isn't just going to be traditionally partisan.
Yeah. What do you make of the fact, though, that Sanders and Yang, Sanders in particular, I mean, look, he is the most left candidate in the race. He's the only real leftist in the race, and yet he garners crossover support. Why do you think that is?
I think absolutely what the point about what Marshall was saying here, right? When you look at some of the folks that we lost in 2016, it was because Donald Trump was really manipulating them to believe that he could help struggling workers, right? And that's what it was. And Democrats absolutely were not doing enough to make sure that we were addressing their concerns. Well, now those workers are still struggling. They've seen billionaires and top corporations get massive tax cuts. So absolutely, they're going to say, no, it's time for me to go find someone that I can go back to. And you see the people that are talking about that. At the same time, and there's been articles on this, we know that the Sanders camp has a little bit of an issue here with Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang is tapping into young people. He's tapping into people that share the same economic,
especially the under age 29 Democrats.
Correct, the younger people. So absolutely, and if Andrew Yang is still now, he has real money. He's organizing more. It's a worry into the equation for Bernie Sanders.
I'll just say, I think we see this on this show every day. There is such a massive appetite out there for people who are willing to call BS on both parties' establishment.
Yeah.
That's what you really see with this crossover support. That Bernie Sanders is willing to say the Democratic Party sucks and I'm an existential threat. that lands with a lot of people, and not just liberals, not just progressives, not just the left. It lands with so many Americans who are just disgusted and utterly disgusted with this.
And I should
system.
note, Warren sitting at 3% here is not a good place to be if you need to win back swing state voters. That's exactly why we saw her in that head-to-head matchups with Trump, that she did not win a single one of those, either tied or was beaten in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and Mr. Electable, Joe Biden, doesn't show any particular strength in this category either. So there you go.
All right, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Debate.
Always
really
great to be here.
Very fun
Good to
one.
be here.
All right, tomorrow on Rising, the Hill's editor-in-chief Bob Cusack, he's going to be in here for the debrief.
And Arkansas Congressman Bruce Westerman shares his perspective on the impeachment proceedings so far. By the way, guys, hit 150,000 subscribers yesterday. Thank you. You know how much we appreciate you all. We really, truly do. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow.